Well, welcome everybody. My name is Ross Riskin. I am the director of the CFP and CHFC education programs here at the American College, and I'm super excited to be talking to you today about our new personal pathway course design program as it relates to the CHFC and CFP education programs. Now, this is something we've been working on for the better part of 2 years. And really, it doesn't just relate to redesigning these courses, but really reimagining how do we deliver comprehensive financial planning education online. So we're a lot of exciting stuff to share with you today. So the agenda of what we're going to talk about is first going to talk a little bit about what is personal pathway. Then we're going to talk a little about changes related to course time lengths. So that's going to be some differences there based on what you're used to being a student already at the college. Talk about some major course design changes that are all centered around the student experience, some changes to grading that we're hoping you will be pleased with. Going to talk about the different roles of access, whether you get full access, when you get full access, when you get limited access, and what comes to that as a student in these courses. Then going to talk about, well, which courses are actually affected in the program and what does the time frame and timetable look like for other courses. Now, personal pathway. So if you're familiar with the courses at the college already, you know that the majority of them are delivered in a self-study format where you have ultimate flexibility, you go through at your own pace, and then you take one final high-stakes exam at the end. Or you may be able to actually take a webinar version of the course over a 10-week period, 2-hour lectures every week. Well, Personal Pathway really combines both of these elements. So it provides a structured yet flexible learning experience because we realize that other programs and other schools go through and they kind of make the student choose up front. Hey, are you going to take this course self-study or do you want to be part of a webinar component? We're giving you the choice, but we're providing both options to you. So for example, the webinar option is actually going to be available to everybody. Now, it's a form of synchronous delivery, but they're going to be recorded should you want to go back and watch them, or you're not able to actually make the live meeting. Or there may be just certain topics that you don't need to actually see the webinar. You may be dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, so it doesn't make sense for you to do that. So you have that option. So we're allowing that flexibility to go through the asynchronous components, which is what I'm going to cover today. And there's some synchronous element as well. We're going to allow better access to instructors by providing that webinar option, and no more webinar fee as well is a big change. So before that used to be an upcharge, but we don't want that. We want to provide the same learning experience options for all students. Then we're going to focus on the improved learning delivery by having additional ways to learn. So there are going to be lesson reviews, which I'm really excited about, which are interactive ways that actually combine text and videos and graphics and other additional assessments for you to be able to learn the material in a different way and prepare for the final exam. Also going to have discussion forums as well to embrace that social learning aspect. And there's a couple different types of discussion forums I'm really excited about. Then there are going to be the lesson quizzes. I think many of you will be very happy to hear that we've gotten rid of the true false assessment types, and all of them are going to be objective multiple choice types, similar to what you're going to see on the sample exam, similar to what you're going to see on your final exam. And then the weekly meetings and webinars, as I already discussed. And then we're also going to have other graded course requirements. So we're going to move away from having just one grade based solely on a final exam. So we know this is going to reduce the pressures of a high stakes exam, hopefully reduces some anxiety, and also focuses on learning the concepts, not just learning and memorizing what you need to know to pass the course, but engaging in other ways of learning through different modalities in the class. So this is one example of something new we've provided that really aligns with this personal pathway, is actually having a suggested learning path. Because while we know that you appreciate the flexibility you have by taking courses at the American College, we also know that you and most students want to know, well, what do I have to do to be successful in this class? So we have a suggested learning path here that actually involves starting with reading the textbook chapters, then going and doing these new lesson review modules, which I'm going to show you, then actually engaging in the social learning aspect of the discussion forum, then evaluating your knowledge by taking some quizzes, and then actually attending the weekly meetings and weekly webinars where you can interact with the instructor, interact with your other peers, and hear all the materials communicated from our great instructors and faculty who have real life experience that are actually giving you practical examples of the content being covered. Now, what about course time length changes? So this is a big change. So you're used to taking courses where you have the current month that you enroll in plus 4 additional months to actually complete the class. We're moving to a 10 plus 4 week schedule though. So it is a compressed time frame, but at the same time, we are narrowing the scope of the material that is covered with that. So even though it's a 10 plus 4 week schedule, it's really a 14-week time frame you have to complete all elements of the course, but the required elements have to be completed in the first 10 weeks. So essentially the course is designed to be completed in 10 weeks. There are 10 lessons, 1 lesson each week. The amount of chapters of content that are going to be covered ranges from 8 to 14. So for example, HS 300, the fundamentals of financial planning course, covers 8 chapters of information, while fundamentals of income taxation covers 14 chapters. So even though it is designed as a 10-week course, you can still move at your own pace. So you can move through and complete the assignments more quickly, but all course requirements need to be completed in 10 weeks. Where the 4 weeks comes in is the 4-week exam window. So basically, if you went through the course and you covered 1 lesson each week over 10 weeks, you would then have 4 weeks to be able to study, schedule, and sit for your final exam. Now, if you actually complete the coursework earlier on, all it does is it gives you additional time to be able to schedule the exam. You still have the full 14 weeks. So if you went through all the material in 6 weeks, you still have the full 14 to actually take your final exam. Now, as far as course design changes, so there is required coursework, as I just alluded to. So what is that? Well, it's comprised of 3 different elements. The first are these lesson reviews, which I'll actually show you an example of what that looks like. The second is discussion forums, and the third are going to be lesson quizzes. Now, there are additional learning resources that we're excited about as well, actually moving to having digital textbooks, which I'm going to show you what that looks like, and they're great that you can actually annotate right in the textbook, make notes, create flashcards, use the search functionality, be able to open up and read a part of the textbook on your computer, and then be able to actually pick up where you left off on your tablet or on your mobile device, having access to those weekly webinar meetings, as I talked about, and then having a sample exam. So one thing that I can't stress enough that we've spent a lot of time redesigning these courses is when it comes to the alignment of assessments. So the final exam questions that you're going to see, you're going to notice that you're going to be tested on concepts that you see tested in the sample exam, that you see tested in the lesson quizzes, that you see tested or talked about in the lesson reviews. So we want to make sure there is that alignment of assessments, that all learning objectives are being assessed in some way, but there's alignment there, right? So we're getting rid of the gotcha questions or the final exam question that covers 1 sentence that was mentioned in the book but was never mentioned anywhere else. So we really took a lot of time to do that and are excited for that. This graphic that you see here is actually an excerpt or a snapshot of what one of the lesson reviews looks like. So it has a combination of text and videos, and we're going to show you what that looks like. So these lesson reviews, so what can you expect from these? Well, there's going to be 1 per lesson, or 10 in total. Estimated time to complete these is going to be between a half an hour and an hour, depending on how many chapters of content is being covered. So it's either going to be 1 chapter or 2, and will depend on each course. So it's a combination of text, videos, interactive graphics, and knowledge check questions. So for example, if we look at this graphic here, this is from HS 321, where it's talking about above the line deductions. So we have some text, we have a formula here, and then we're actually able to incorporate real life things that you're going to see with your clients, like what does the tax form look like? Where do these above the line deductions actually flow through, or where do they actually appear? How are these graded? Straight participation grades. So essentially students, you guys are getting a grade just by completing and doing these, right? Because we know it's there to help your learning, it's helping review the concepts, and that's their purpose, to highlight the most important content and also to provide external learning opportunities, because there may be some areas that we've maybe covered sufficiently for you to be able to answer the questions correctly, demonstrate your knowledge of the material, but there may be things that you want to learn more about. So we may be able to link out to a relevant, timely article, or actually link you to the IRC code section so you can actually read it and do a deeper dive of your learning that way as well. So let me show you what one of these lesson reviews actually looks like. So here's one from HS 321, just to give you an example. We're not going to go through everything here, but as you can see, it's got text here. There are clickable icons that you can actually click through to reveal other information of text, different graphs and charts here, having actual tax forms in here. They can actually see what relates to the information that's covered. And what we can also do here is have different knowledge checks. That's something you're going to see in each of these. So not only are we highlighting the most important concepts, but we're also going to include more relevant assessment questions for you in there. Another example here is we're using video, which you're used to seeing in other programs here, but we're using it strategically. For example, when we're talking about the taxability of municipal bond interest, we have the formula here, a lot of examples, and then we're actually having relevant videos here. In addition, as I mentioned before, kind of the external learning opportunities or extended learning opportunities, if we're talking about Roth IRAs, for example, talking about the treatment of distributions, and then we also talk about, let's say, 529 plans. So what we do is we actually add in additional content. So here's a relevant video where I'm actually discussing, well, what happens if you have a client that is thinking about taking money from either a Roth IRA or a 529 plan? What are the tax consequences? We have some really cool interactive videos to help enhance the learning for different things like that. So really excited for these. And as you can see here on the left, there's going to be one of these little lessons for each learning objective. And we're really assessing what's the best way to deliver the content. So really excited for that. There are going to be 10 of those lesson reviews in total. Now, what about discussion forums? Well, discussion forums are going to be set in a couple different ways. One of them is part of your required coursework or has a graded element. It's going to be discussion article posts. So what's the deal with these? Well, throughout the 10 weeks you have to complete all this required coursework, we're requiring you to complete 2 of these, meaning you have to find 2 relevant articles that are related somehow to any of the lessons covered. And we want you to post a link to the article and provide a 250-word summary with relevant takeaways. Therefore, you can engage in timely discussions, such as, in the income tax class, you can post an article about PPP loan forgiveness, which there are plenty coming out every day or every hour. There seems to be something new. So this engages you in the social learning aspect where you post timely and relevant material and you can interact with other peers with this. How are these graded? Participation grade as well for this. So just posting them in there, as long as you get 2 in for each respective lesson, that's fine for the graded element. Now, an additional forum that we have here that I'm excited about is the muddiest points. Because let's face it, there are definitely concepts that we see that it doesn't matter. I'm a student, I've read the book, I've done an assessment question, I've attended a lecture. There's still some things that don't click, that they're not presented well, or I'm still having trouble. That's what we want the muddiest point forum to serve as. So while you may be used to reaching out to the instructor and asking your question, which we encourage you to do, chances are the question you have may be the same question a lot of other students have that they're not coming forward about. So if you post to the forum here saying, I'm having an issue actually understanding the taxability of, Roth IRA distributions, you can post it there and the instructor can actually respond there, or other peers may be able, your other students that you're learning with may be able to respond as well. So we're encouraging that, and that's available for every lesson as well. We also have an updates and corrections forum. So if we identify something where there's an error in the textbook or there's an error in the PowerPoint, there's an error in one of those lesson reviews, we can post it there to address that in due time or in a timely fashion for you. So, well, what's the purpose of this? As I stated before, really to help you apply concepts and elaborate on different things, have that social learning, but also posting relevant articles allows us to stay connected to the industry and trends, right? There may be certain outlets that you're getting your news from, you're getting your relevant and practical planning strategy tips from that other students may not see. So anything that you can provide that enhances the learning experience for everybody, we think is equally beneficial for all students. So once again, there are going to be 2 of those required for the course that factor into your grade. Then we have lesson quizzes. So they're going to be 1 of these per lesson, 10 in total. Estimated time to complete these is going to be about a half an hour. Multiple choice assessments, as I said, we gotten rid of the true false assessments. Multiple attempts are allowed, and the highest score is going to be factored into your final grade. So essentially, what are the things we've covered? We've talked about these lesson reviews where there are 10 of them. You have to go through all 10. You get full credit participation grade. You have the discussion forums where as long as you are posting links to 2 articles and 250 word summary and takeaways, you're meeting the requirement for that. And then the 10 lesson quizzes. So as long as you complete the 10 lesson quizzes, you've met the requirements of completing the 3 main graded requirements of the course, you can then schedule your final exam. Now, keep in mind, the highest score is factored in. You have multiple attempts. So even if you take all the quizzes and you get 30% on all of them, you still may be able to sit for the final exam, but we want you to go back to actually retake those quizzes, have additional assessments in there to be able to bump up your grade. This is an example of what the quiz questions look like. As I said, multiple choice, you're able to kind of go back and forth. And the sample exam is displayed in a similar format. You could jump from question 1 down to question 100, down to question 50, wherever you want, and you can come back to the questions as well. What's the purpose of these? Well, we know it's knowledge evaluation, right? You want to see, are you getting the concepts? It's also helping you prepare for the exams because there's this alignment between what you see in the quizzes and what you see in the sample exam and what you're going to see on the actual final exam as well. And we have data that shows the students that are doing these assessments, these lesson quizzes that summarize the material, are 10 to 20% more likely to actually pass the course. Now, the weekly meetings I mentioned before, these are available to all students, but are optional. So like I said, you maybe can't make the meetings, don't want to make them, fine, but maybe you're the student that actually wants to engage with the instructor, or you like that type of learning experience. They're available to everybody in a synchronous element. So they're gonna be offered on a Monday through Wednesday schedule at either 5:30 p.m. or 8 p.m. We're gonna have it on a staggered schedule. So for example, the webinars for HS300 are gonna run at 5:30 for those students in June, and they're gonna run at 8 o'clock for those students who are taking that course in July. And so they're gonna stagger the schedule, at least to begin with. Estimated runtime for these is gonna be approximately 2 hours, but recordings are gonna be available for playback in case you can't attend them. What's the purpose of these? Obviously, I know we all know the purpose is, to allow instructors and students to actually engage with one another in a synchronous learning environment. They're going to be hosted through Zoom. And then another important thing, so it's not only going to be the instructor going through the lecture material, actually teaching the concepts, but if there's time at the end of each of these lectures, and because we're asking you guys to actually do other work, to actually take those quizzes, to go through the lesson reviews, to post issues that you're having with some of the material that's not clear, it allows our instructors to actually gather that feedback ahead of time and actually be able to touch on that in the lecture, right? So maybe you're the type of student that you go through, if you're not getting something, you kind of try to work it to death yourself. Maybe you don't send the instructor an email, but we can actually look on the back end to see, well, we see that you actually got these questions wrong, or you're getting these wrong after multiple attempts. Let's make sure we focus on that when we go through the lecture element of the course. So like I said, Monday through Wednesday for those, 5:30 and 8 p.m. will be recorded for full playback purposes. Now, those are the graded elements. What are the weights of these graded elements? Well, those lesson reviews, so the 10 we have in total, that is worth 10% of your grade, going through and doing those. The discussion articles is worth 10% of your grade. The lesson quizzes are worth 10% of your grade. And remember, you have to complete those 3. So basically, in order to even sit for the exam, you have to be doing all of those elements, and you're basically getting 30% of your grade right there, which leaves the final exam, which is going to be weighted at 70%. Final exam is still going to be 100 multiple choice questions. There still will be the 3 different types of questions that you've seen, although the majority of them have been reworked to be straight multiple choice. So you will still see those except for questions or the Roman numeral questions, but the majority are going to be the straight multiple choice questions. So those are the 4 graded elements for the course. And then what about grading scale? Well, we've actually including a D here. This is for GPA purposes, but it's important to note that a D is not a passing grade in these courses. So for American College requirements and also for a lot of state CE, per their requirements, you have to actually get an A, B, or a C in the class to pass, to actually pass the class. So that's the new grading scale there. And then what about course access? So now courses are going to open the first Thursday of the month. So the first Thursday of the month, you're going to get full access. You're going to be able to get in there, see the lesson reviews, go through the discussion forums if you want, go through the lesson quizzes. But before that, when you actually enroll in the class, you're gonna get limited access. So what's included with that? Well, you're gonna be able to see any relevant announcements that are coming through from the instructor. And you're gonna be able to get access to this about this course section, which has the syllabus, textbook, and calendar. And let's take a look at what the about this course section actually looks like in the course. So for example, I'm showing you here what it looks like in the HS 321 course. You get access to this personal pathway orientation video, which is a great reminder of what we're covering today, plus a lot more in-depth content of actually going through the learning management system in Brightspace, going through what's available to you, how do you navigate around, and what are the requirements of the class. Then we're going to cover or provide you with course objectives, that tips for success. Remember, that was that suggested learning path I showed you earlier on. Then you get access to the syllabus and the electronic textbook. We've also had some enhancements to the syllabi here where we have the course description and learning objectives, but we're also reinforcing what's required of you, what learning resources are actually available to you, and we provide a recommended course schedule. So if you want to take the course and actually go through it on a 10-week basis, which is recommended, we're going to tell you, hey, in week 1 in HS 321, we're covering fundamentals of income tax. Required reading is chapter 3. Here's what you should be looking to do to complete the lesson module, do the discussion article post if that's one of the 2 you want to do, complete the lesson quiz, and then actually attend the lesson lecture or watch the recorded version. We've also provided time estimates for you here, right? So we know you value flexibility, being able to go through it at your own pace, but we also know that you want guidance, right? How long is it going to take me to do this, right? So I can plan out accordingly when we're going through. Like I said, you can go through in any order you want. So you may want to do, what's covered in week 2 first, or lesson 2 first rather, but that flexibility is up to you as you kind of design your own personal pathway. So that's the syllabus as we go through. What does the electronic textbooks look like? So I remember before I mentioned that they're interactive, right? So I can come in here and actually highlight text. I can add notes. I can go in and I can actually make flashcards about certain material. I have the ability to search the book for certain terms, which is great. And I have the ability to actually start my learning here, or actually start my reading here, and then pick it up on another device, and it will be able to pick back up where I left off, which is great. And you'll basically, when you go into each lesson in the course, it will take you right to the relevant chapter of information that is being covered. So really excited about that as a new learning tool. So now, which classes are actually being affected with this new personal pathway design? So as of June, it's going to be the first 3 courses in the CFP ChFC education program. So HS 300, 311, and 321. Then in July, the remaining 3 courses of 326, 328, and 330 are going to be available. So as of July 1, that's when all of the courses are going to be in this new format for the base foundation courses. So right now, there are no immediate changes to this new model for the capstone in HS 333 or the practical applications course in 347. So that's when the classes are being affected here. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention here relates to what I like to call ingredients for success. We spent a lot of time working on this and going through trying to figure out, well, how do we develop a great student experience? And so it really starts with what the college is known for, is providing great content, right? That's why we have the thought leadership of Michael Finka and Wade Pfau and Steve Parrish to be able to create really good, practically applicable content, but then also being able to identify when there's other content out there that's valuable as well that we can incorporate into the learning experience. So once we have great content, we move into figuring out, well, what's the best way to actually deliver this content, right? So that's why we're on a new learning management system through Brightspace, where you can learn seamlessly, whether it's on a tablet, a computer, a mobile device, and you can bounce back and forth. You have interactive assignments, you have relevant videos, audio, text, searchable textbook, all of that for an engaging delivery model, and having great content, delivering in a great way, and then probably most importantly, having a reliable and functioning student support system. So from the advisors to the counselors to the instructors themselves, we're making sure we're increasing transparency, accessibility, and availability, because we want to make sure we can answer your questions, whether they be technical in nature or content specific, because that's ultimately important. Is we're all here for you to make sure it's a great learning experience and that you're really grasping the concepts. And that all leads to having a great first class learning experience here at the college, here through the personal pathway program that applies to the CFP and the ChFC education programs. So that's all I really wanted to cover. I know it's a lot of change, a lot of different things here. So we're excited to hear your feedback once you get into these courses and see what's available to you. And it's all about your success. And that's what we're here for these courses, practically applicable education in through a great delivery model. So now, if you have questions, you've probably been submitting them through the Q&A. So we're going to be able to get back to you with that. If you haven't submitted anything there, you can submit them to this email address, brightspace@theamericancollege.edu. I'm going to leave this up here for a minute or two. So submit your questions through there, submit through the Q&A, and then we're going to be able to get back to you with the responses on those. So not going to do the Q&A live right now because there's 1,200 people on here, but looking forward to your comments and feedback. I'll leave this up here, and I will see you in the classroom.